Innovating Education Learning World in association with WISE, an initiative of Qatar Foundation.
Who should pay for secondary education across Europe? It is a growing concern and a controversial issue. With the global economic crisis, increase in demand and lack of finance, public funding is proving unsustainable. To solve the problem, some governments are implementing financial reforms, putting some of the burdens on the students themselves. Increasing tuition fees is one of the reforms brought in the UK, a move that provoked sometimes violent protests from students. For an insight, we spoke to key players from the world of education.
In England, university fees have now been capped at £9,000 per year, meaning that to complete a 3-year degree course, students will have to borrow up to £27,000, which is around €34,000, before even considering maintenance costs. The decision brought students out in protest.
Education must be free!
Who should pay for education?
I mean, I very strongly believe education should be free. It's a public benefit in society. General taxation should pay for education. Everyone should have the opportunity to be educated as they are able, not as they're able to pay.
The UK government says that students will not have to start repaying their loans until they earn over £21,000 per year. But nevertheless, students will start their working lives carrying a heavy debt. And it's feared that many outstanding pupils will not apply for university for fear of this debt.
As more and more people go to university, the question then becomes, how do you pay for it? And is it fair to ask the generality of taxpayers to pay? We think that taxpayers should lend the money to the student, but the fairest way of paying for it is for the graduate, when they're in a well-paid job, only if they're in a well-paid job, then to pay back the loan.
But since students will also have to borrow the money to live on during their studies, the total debt could amount to over £50,000, and even more for veterinary and medical students whose courses last up to 7 years.
In the UK, these measures which are now being introduced will make our universities the most expensive publicly funded universities in the Western world.
These protesters say a university education is becoming a privilege reserved for a wealthy elite.
Italy is also facing severe funding problems in education. In recent years, the government has imposed a 20% cut on budgets allocated to universities. This and other reforms are being bitterly opposed by students and university staff. Let's find out more in this report.
In Italy, university reform is also making waves.
È qui che è tutto cominciato,
It all started here, when we climbed onto the roof to demonstrate the importance of Italian universities. Come this way.
The roof of this university in Rome was the stage for a series of protests against reforms which aim to run universities along business lines. The faculties will be run by an administration council overseen by a national agency which will evaluate universities and allocate government financing. Student grants will depend on academic achievement and not on the family's ability to pay. Staff will only get temporary contracts.
Training a researcher costs up to €250,000. So if they go abroad to work, all the benefits of that training, up to 10 times the cost of it, goes into other countries' pockets. So this law will encourage a brain drain from Italy.
In Italy, the reforms are accompanied by a budget cut of 20%.
There are always budget cuts. For example, in the law faculty, where I work, in the University of Sapienza. Last November, 27 professors retired, but not a single one of them has been replaced.
These geology students in Rome have just received their degrees in environmental sciences. But the celebrations won't last long, because the future is very uncertain.
Sadly, our choices are limited, at least for now. So I think we'll have to go abroad to do a master's, that's for sure.
While some European countries are cutting their budgets and increasing tuition fees, Germany continues to substantially fund its universities. The success of the German economy relies heavily on the quality of the nation's science and research, and it can't afford to lag behind, as we hear in this report from Heidelberg University.
Heidelberg University is the oldest one in Germany, founded 625 years ago. Enrollment depends on ability rather than financial resources, however, because German students get generous grants and an interest-free student loan. Tuition fees at around €600 per term are among the lowest in Europe.
What's expensive in Germany is renting a flat. Then we have to pay tuition fees. All those expenses make a hole in your pocket.
Only 40% of the 28,000 students studying at Heidelberg pay tuition fees. The rest have grants, which are available to good students from low-income families.
People say that since taxes are so high, it's up to the state to pay for universities. However, this can't happen to the extent that we'd like, because the country has to pay for other things too, to remain competitive worldwide.
Heidelberg University costs €540 million a year to run. Out of that, €180 million comes from businesses, private foundations and individual benefactors.
Germany depends on the quality of her science and research. We can't afford to lag behind in terms of academic excellence. That's why the state should continue substantial financing of universities. We all benefit from the students' knowledge, so it's very important for the state to provide grants. On the other hand, third parties like industry should also be involved in financing, because they reap benefits through their cooperation with universities.
Heidelberg demonstrates that a modern university can't provide the highest standards of education and research without solid financing.
We will be back next week with different stories from the world of education. And remember, you can watch all of our episodes online at euronews.net/Learning World.
Learning World in association with WISE, an initiative of Qatar Foundation.